Welcome to the Manufacturing Masters Podcast with your host, Allison DeFord.
If you've been tuning in to this podcast for a while now, you have heard me use the phrase ROI cubed. What is that? Well, my friends, return on investment alone is no longer an option. You also want to get a return on innovation and a return on influence. And lucky for you, today's guest is an expert on the Manufacturing Masters platform. He's also the CEO of Felber PR and Marketing. And he also literally puts out fires with manufacturers and in real life. Spending some time with Rob Felber is going to give you insights and equip you to stop being the best kept secret and get a bigger return on influence by leveraging the power of industrial PR. We're going to demystify it. We're going to explain how you, as a manufacturer, can leverage it to your advantage. It's not hard, it doesn't hurt, and you don't need special shoes. Thank you so much for spending some time on yourself and your business today. We appreciate you. Everybody, here we grow. Rob, I'm so excited to have you. You and I have so much in common when it comes to marketing, manufacturers, and I feel like you, being one of our resident experts on the Manufacturing Masters platform, have some amazing videos about PR and how we can help our manufacturers take advantage of it, leverage it. And the other cool thing about you that people may not know is that you literally, for more than 30 years, I think at this point 40, you're putting out fires with manufacturers and in real life.
Right.
So
Yeah,
which came first, the firefighting or the marketing?
the firefighting, actually, the short story is I had to do a senior project in high school. And I said, I'm on this volunteer fire department. They're like, we're not letting you sit in an empty department for 4 years. For 4 weeks. Go over to this other department and see if they'll have you there full time. And I did my senior project there, and the chief's like, do you want to stay? And here I am 41 years later. I'm a lieutenant and paramedic and at a suburban department. I do that part-time. I've had my company, Felber Public Relations Marketing, for 31 years. And it does kind of cross over from time to time. I actually do have a client that has several products in the fire service industry. So that's been kind of coming full circle and able to talk the talk. But PR still comes into play because we had to teach them, just like every other manufacturer. We only work with B2B manufacturers.
Yes, I love that. We're cut from the same cloth, my friend. And I think it's important. In one of your videos, you talk about industrial PR and how it's often a misunderstood topic. So for our manufacturers listening, let's talk about what it actually is so we can demystify or remove any confusion or fear.
Yeah, a lot of times when anyone, manufacturers included, hear PR, their first thought is, White House press room crisis.
Right.
And while our manufacturers do have crises from, fires and other accusations, so forth, that's not our game. We are on the industrial trade media, PR. And the way we explain it, we are sitting here speaking one-to-one. I said, if we get a story in a publication, it might be 1 to 20,000 or 50,000, whatever their viewership or their editor, deems as their readership. And where we really like to make the match to help our manufacturers understand even where to go. First and foremost, they obviously have to understand who their prospect is. We've all, I'm sure there's umpteen videos on prospects and the personas that they're targeting. And the way we explain it is the prospect persona that you have for manufacturer has to match the readership of the publication. If it doesn't, the content's not going to be interesting. So the exaggeration is, if you're a a die caster, you're not going to be targeting a lawn and garden publication,
Right.
or home and garden or what have you. So if your prospect persona, so how do you know that matches? Is all the trade publications put out media kits. Now their media kits are designed to attract for their advertisers, but in those media kits, not only do they talk about who their readership is and the circulation and the various titles, they also often develop what's called an editorial calendar, what I call the big rock stories that we're going to cover over the next 12 months. They may just be one or two topics, or they may say we have this automotive column every week, or every month rather, in the publication. And most of these are monthly publications. Some are still in print, of course. Many are. Print is not dead, and the trade media is not dead, which is good. But they also, it's a digital space. So now their packages include, for their advertisers, email marketing and banners and various show circulation. So, but you have to have that, what we call that match. Once you have that match in the prospect persona, now you can start effectively saying which publications cover our industry. And that's, and there is a difference. A lot of times people confuse ads versus pay to play versus editorial PR, I'll say. And ads are just that. You decide what you want to spend, quarter page ad, you get to design it, you submit it, and it's your 100% your message and your content. Advertorial is often confused with PR as well. That's kind of another pay to play, whether you take an ad or you pay for placement and you get a full page, maybe it's an article, what have you. I have no problem with advertorial as long as I know ahead of time. Again, it's a pay to play. And the reason that I say I have no problem knowing ahead of time is, as a PR professional, if we pitch a story now, and now I'm going over to the third side, which is the editorial side. You have a fantastic process. You have great case studies. Your customers want to talk about you, and you go after the bread and butter what these trade publications want, which is case studies. Well, now you get that case study, and I'm pitching, finally an editor after 11 months. So yeah, I think we're going to do this story. And then they go, oh, can your client buy an ad? Oh, no. Don't do that to me. If it's going to be editorial, tell me up front. If it's editorial, pure editorial, the joke is that you pay for advertising and you pay for PR, but as a PR firm, we quickly correct the fact that you do pay for PR because you got to pay our professional services. That's kind of how I wrap it up in a nutshell for the prospect persona of how to determine which publications to ads versus advertorial in the middle versus pure editorial. And the publications, again, they love case studies. They love features. And, not to be confused with a press release. Okay, you've got this great 25,000 foot expansion. You're adding 5 more machines and new services, and you put a press release out. A press release is not an article, we say. A press release is an introduction to an editor or reporter to say, hey, this is some news. Would you be interested in interviewing our client and interviewing the end users and so forth, then hoping for that feature. Or the other end of the spectrum is they may just take a little blurb and say XYZ Manufacturing is expanding, expecting, to increase revenue and hire 40 new employees. So there's two ends of the spectrum on the PR. And I do want to talk a little bit about where to, research and find these publications, but I'm going to pause there and see if you had any questions on what I've said so far.
Yes. And I want to talk about that in just a minute. What I loved in one of your videos, and I think this is an excellent point, is you talk about newsworthiness.
Yes. Thank you.
And I think, how do you become newsworthy? Like, what you give a couple of pro tips, and in case you don't remember what they are, I'll remind you. You talk about doing your homework, and you talk about, and I love this, don't be afraid to call the editor, the writer. Don't be afraid to call them and say, hey, I saw your article last month on XYZ. Loved this part of it, because everybody likes to hear positive feedback. And as you say, it lets them know that you've done some homework, you've done your research, and, maybe find out, hey, when's the next time you're going to run? I looked at your editorial calendar, wasn't quite sure, but building that relationship with them
Absolutely.
is
Yeah. Show them that you
huge.
put some effort into it. Absolutely. I mean, you make that prospect persona match. If you're not 100% sure, it's okay to call an editor and say, I have this concept. I have this company, or you're calling on behalf of yourself, my company, my manufacturing company, and we do this, this, and this. Is there a fit? And again, when you have that prospect persona match, and like you said, you've done your homework, you've looked at their editorial calendars, they put a lot of time into deciding what they're going to cover in their stories, and for you to do your homework and acknowledge that, hey, I was looking at an editorial calendar and I see in August, you're doing this topic and such. This also brings up a good time to talk about, I mentioned earlier, these are monthly publications.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting here recording this podcast in June of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these publications, July, August, maybe even September, are put to bed.
Right.
So if the editorial calendar says they're covering something in July, it's too late. They probably already went to press. They've already done their homework. They've already done their editorial meetings and decide what they're going to write about. Now, the caveat is some publications do additional content online and may have space for that. And maybe a story doesn't go in print, but it goes online. But the doing your homework part comes into looking at these editorial calendars far out. So I mentioned this is June, probably October, maybe as late as November. The trade publications will start publishing their 2025 media kits.
Mm-hmm.
You can go right to the websites. You can download them. Sometimes they're gated because they want to know who's downloading them. There's no harm, no foul. Although every good salesperson that's worth their weight will call you in about 4 minutes to say, "Oh, I see you downloaded the media kit." But that's a wealth of information, and the editorial calendars and the kits are going to vary in complexity depending on the group. But that's a great place to do your research. Which leads me, to not only knowing who to target, but one of the greatest place to start that research is your industry trade associations and trade shows that you go to. Because if you know the audience to the trade show and it's the right audience for your company, invariably there's going to be trade media covering that show looking for stories. They often might have a booth, but their booth is more the salespeople trying to either sell advertising or gain subscriptions. But that being said, there's editors and reporters all floating around, and oftentimes what they call a credentialed media list that you can get from the trade shows. And oftentimes even on the show website, they might list their media sponsors. And that's a great place to start doing research, to look at those publications and to take advantage of that opportunity. This is the one that amazes me, that most folks that are exhibiting at trade shows, I mean, they're spending 50, 100 grand. They're flying everybody out. They're taking them off the road. They're buying things to hand out. They're putting thousands of dollars into a booth, and then they just open the doors and hope somebody comes by.
Yep.
Now, yes, this is not the topic of attracting trade show. Go to our website at felberpr.com. We have a whole nother ebook on working with trade shows. But on the media side, this is a great time to say, to the media, hey, we're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And would you like to come by our booth and talk about this or that? We're going to have the CEO or our head engineer or our quality manager. They're all going to be in the booth. But we don't usually I'll stop by for an answer. We build out a calendar and we say, hey, what time do you want to come by? 2:00 on Wednesday. Perfect. We'll lock that. That's your
Very
private
smart.
time to sit with the CEO and have all our media kit information now ready about our company, the history, maybe some sample articles that have been run before, and put a media kit together. And knowing, though, there's a timeline here, and it kind of circles back to the editorial calendar. So say your trade show's in August, and they come by, you have this great meeting, and they say, wow, this topic would be perfect for our December issue. And this is August. So you have to know that in this world, that PR is a long cycle. somebody's going to say, hey, you spent all that money, how was the show? Did you sell anything? Did you get any great leads? And that's a whole nother component. But on those 20,000 or 50,000 eyeballs that you're trying to go after, and they run that article in December or maybe even January of 2025, that's when people start to see it. So that's when I say it's a long cycle, because that's 6-8 months away.
Yeah.
Now, if you do this repeatedly, and with one of our clients who, fairly large manufacturer, put their toe in this water, they had never done this before. We had 9 appointments. We've gotten an article out of every single one. They're big enough where they should have been covered, but they never asked. And so now we have these publications doing all kinds of stories. Some reporters said, we like this topic so much, will you give us an exclusive? So we locked down and we wouldn't talk to any other publications about that topic. And people say, well, how do you measure? At the end of the day, how do you measure the value?
How do you?
And I'm old. I was accused of being a Q-tip today at the gym. The old way of measuring before all this digital was, we got you a full page article, and a full page ad would be $5,000. So there's your value. But that's not, the old, joke in digital is traffic doesn't pay the bills, leads do.
Right.
And so being able to measure now in the digital space, traffic to a website based on articles and such is available. We're a shapeless promoter. HubSpot is a marketing automation platform. That's what we use with our clients. And if that website link to your manufacturing company appears in the article and someone clicks on it digitally, we can measure that. That's a referral link. Right. So now we have some ability. We can see spikes in traffic. We can measure throughput to landing pages and conversion. So it does all tie back into something that can be measured. And at the same time, you're building up a reputation with an editor or reporter. And the next time they have a question, they may come to you and say, you're the expert in die casting, the expert in, sorry, I gotta wave my hands and the light will come back on.
That's okay.
Oh, there we go. I forgot what room I'm in. The light goes off. So for our listeners out there, this is a sustainable podcast that we're trying to use lights. And if you believe that, but that's kind of how we tie PR into the trade publications. The editors and reporters, again, unlike my opening statement about crisis and White House backdrop, that's not that. Yes, they want to be technically accurate, but they're not looking to hang you. They want to write a good story. One of the common things that my clients always ask is, can we see the article before it's published? And most publications, that's a no-no. You usually don't say, they'll say, you'll see it when it's published. But in the trade media, especially industrial, they want to get it right. And they oftentimes will run by, the technical content of an article. They don't want you to change their writing. And this is also a good point to mention. When I media train our clients, we always say, what would you give your right arm not to be asked? But we better have an answer for it if you are. So, if there's a topic you want to avoid it. The other caveat is don't mention something and say, can you not print that? I had a client mention one of their customers. I really wish I hadn't said that. And I had a good enough, rapport with the reporter. He goes, this one time. He goes, I will take it out for you one time. He goes, don't ever put me in that position again. And he was he was also a 30-year print journalist coming out of the newspaper side. Now we're writing for trade, so we had the strong enough relationship for him to do that, but don't say something that you don't want in print. It used to be, if you don't want your mother to read it on the front page, don't say it out loud. But trade media, they're not looking to hang you. They're looking to write good stories, good content. And the more you could do your research and and even if you get them on the phone and say, hey, Mary or Joe, I read that article that you did last month. That was pretty, it shows that you're paying attention and connect with them on LinkedIn and like their articles. I mean, they have a job to do as well. And that's to put good content. The caveat is, there wouldn't, if there's no advertisers, there's no place to write stories. So they have to balance advertising and editorial. And I'm not saying that you advertise to get, editorial coverage. The two are really quite separate. But they do work hand in hand. And, I've had clients say, oh, well, we got great coverage in these publications, should we advertise in the other ones? And I said, it's kind of time to pay the piper. Let's reward those that they've given you, a cover article, or they've given you an in-depth 2-page article in their publication, and you've gotten pickup traffic, or you've noticed, return on investment there. That's also a good way to know where to place your advertising. Hey, we did PR, we got picked up, the audience must be a match. Maybe we should advertise, because again, they're not going to cover you every month.
So I think that's smart. That's smart advice. And one thing I wanted for you to enlighten our listeners and viewers is if I'm a manufacturer, how do I know what's newsworthy?
Excellent. Yeah. So newsworthiness, it really comes back to knowing your prospect, knowing the publications, and that's where you have a match. So newsworthiness is a match to the type of content that they cover. And a new website, for example, is not newsworthy. Right. Everybody wants to be excited.
Exciting to you.
Unless there's some new functionality that you couldn't do before.
Yeah.
But newsworthiness, oftentimes it may be, we're adding 100 jobs, we're deducting 100 jobs, we've added 6 presses, we've made this investment, or CEO is taking over. Those are newsworthy. But from a content case study, that's where you really have to dig deep and say, would our readers or viewers of this publication be interested in this particular, talk about porosity and aluminum die casting, and how to fix it, and such. I had a funny story once with a client where they were a CNC shop, and they had worked with this guy, this kind of the guru in golf putting, and he invented certain types of putters, but no manufacturer would touch them until the CNC shop came along. And so we wrote this thing up and we pitched it to a publication. He said, this is good. He goes, but I need more technical. So I went to the technical guys and they gave me all the accesses and all that other stuff. He goes, if you do that, he goes, our readers are engineers. He goes, you come at them with technical stuff and golf. He goes, it'll be like catnip for them. Nice. Here's the way he put it. And he was excited, and they ran the story, because we satisfied the technical side of the readers, and the fun side of golf and how technology was using to solve some problem.
I love that. And another thing that I think is important, and you talk about this, and I think it's an excellent, not necessarily an analogy, but you talk about, of course, you want to get the sale. To get the sale, you've got to get the lead.
Yes.
And to get the lead, you've got to have a story.
Right. Yeah. And it ties back to what I said earlier, the long cycle.
Yeah.
So, most manufacturers have a very long lead cycle. Most of our clients, it could be 3-4 years before the prints are approved, the die is made, the prototypes are done, what have you. And on the PR side, unlike direct selling, is, to get that lead, someone has to know about you. Well, for someone to know about you, they might have to read about you. And sales in PR is no different. You have to sell yourself and the newsworthiness to the editors and reporters. So I'm going all the way back to the beginning and create that relationship with that editor reporter. If you're not even 100% sure if you have something to talk about, but you're going to be in the same place at the same time, say, hey, you got 15 minutes for coffee. If you fall on the sword a little bit, say, I'm just not 100% sure. I read your publication, but I want to see if you think this resonates. And a good editor reporter will respect that. And then they will tell you. Sometimes they even have written editorial guidelines and so forth and such. So that's always good to pay attention to.
Well, yes, I agree. And I think it's important to, I remind my clients all the time when, as you mentioned before, how do we measure return? And what I tell them is, you don't want to stop at return on investment. You want to focus on ROI cubed. And I get the eyebrow raise and the lean in like, okay, what is that? You are also looking for return on innovation and return on influence. So as you've said, if you put the story out there, and if you are not a writer, which most people wouldn't claim to be good writers, right? That's when you hire someone. Hire a company like yours, hire maybe there's a really qualified freelancer or writer that somebody could refer to you, but don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money to have it done right.
Sure.
So, and don't let you not being a writer or, oh, I'm too busy, hold you back.
Right. Yeah. Our clients are invariably almost always engineers, and they're very busy. And we'll say, hey, if you're flying to a client, call us on the drive. Call us when you're sitting in the airport. We'll interview you, or we'll send you a bunch of questions. We'll get the content out. And what you're referring to is a little bit what I call the brass ring. If we pitch a story and a publication says, it sounds like a match, it's great, but we're very busy. Can you give us 1,500 words and 3 caption photos? And we're like, yes, of course we can, because then us, our team, the client, we work together, we draft that copy. They may edit it, but very rarely do they make major edits. That's when they're very busy. And I mentioned photos, and make sure they're high-res photos that you have the rights for, that there's no safety violations in, and that they're supposed to be wearing safety goggles or air protection, that they are in the photos. That's again what I call the brass ring. The other end of the story or the situation could be either whether it was a press release or they stopped by at your booth and you had that meeting at the trade show and they decide to write the story. You have a little less control, right? But you give them the information and they're willing to, work with you, but they control the editorial and they write it. But there's many, many agencies like ourselves out there. There's many freelancers out there. There's many other journalists that work on the site as well. And because everybody's, short staffed. So there's a lot of different ways to get that done. And I'll give a little pro tip that I've always used that someone taught me a really, really long time ago. If you want to build respect in about 8 seconds when they pick up the phone and they go, and they say, hey, yeah, this is Joe. You say, hey, Joe, do you have a second or are you on deadline? And you immediately show respect. Yes. And I've only had it, 1 out of 20 times. I go, yeah, I got to be on the air in 10 minutes. Can you call me back? Or I am on a big deadline. But I always say they're cats. They're curious. They'll say, I'm on deadline, but what do you got? And you got to be in a position to say what you have. Yeah. And why you're calling them. Another agency just gave us a gift whereby they said, hey, we heard this reporter's looking for stories in manufacturing. And so that's the email that I just got before our podcast. I got to go call her back and say, hey, here's what I've got. Is it a fit? And I think you're looking for these kind of stories, and I'll run 3 or 4, scenarios, and it may end up hopefully in a full-blown interview, plant visit, photos, the whole bit, and that's probably fantastic. A whole other tangent. If you get to that level, make sure, the plant's cleaned up, the safety is spot on. If there's proprietary things in your process, they'll respect if you say, hey, you can take this part of the machine, but you can't take the full picture. They'll respect that because they know it's, but just be prepared for that, and don't have anything now that, oh, I wasn't supposed to show, we have an NDA, I wasn't supposed to show that part. Yeah. Whitewash everything, get it all cleaned up and ready to go before they walk in the door with their cameras and so forth.
Excellent advice. That is so true. And we've got to wrap up here. And the one thing that I think I want to re-emphasize that you were talking about earlier is this is a long game. Okay. This is, don't have content created and, excuse me, put out a press release or, have an editorial piece published and expect instant return. Right. Because as you say, this is earned media.
Yes, thank you for using that
right?
term. I haven't used that term today, but that's exactly.
Earned attention.
Yeah, earned it, and you will get, almost like the lifetime value of a client. I've got clients that we work with 10, 12 years,
Mhm.
enough where they have a press room now with maybe 100 articles. And it's a digital world, as I mentioned, it lives forever. There's
Yep.
your SEO. You may have
Right.
articles that like, hey, you're talking to a prospect, hey, don't take our word for it. Here's what design world thought of us. And you send a couple articles, it just shows that third party endorsement, that third party
Yep.
credibility that the publications, but but don't forget to use those to your advantage. Send out, emails to your customers. Hey, if you didn't see it, we were in this article.
Yes.
You can do that and do it on social media.
Yes.
And I also, lastly, tell them, when we do their social media for their clients, we thank the publications and we use their hashtag. So thank you, such and such publication tag
Yes.
for covering our client or covering our story. We usually do it in that social media on behalf of the manufacturers. And why do you do that? Because there's a lot of people that follow that media. And they
Yes.
may not have seen the story, but because you hashtagged it or you tagged that publication. And believe me, it's a small world on those publications on their social media side. They will see it. They will like you back. They will thank you back.
Yes. It's the ripple effect.
Yeah. So you can get a lot of play off of one article, but again, don't, just like I never recommend one ad, one time, 1 year.
Right.
One article is not
Never
going
gonna work.
to launch. But you need to look at multiple opportunities. And people say, "Oh, but our business is different and it's very niche." Every manufacturer says that. There are 5 to 6 to 8 publications out there that
Correct.
cover your industry, and don't be afraid to also consider your local newspapers and so
Right.
forth, because every manufacturer I know, and I'm sure there's 18 videos at Manufacturing Masters about recruiting and getting the right people. If these articles are written, even in the local, not only did their CEO buddies see the articles, but it becomes like, oh, this company's featured here or there. Here's some great articles. I want to work there. So if you're a brand new engineer graduating and saying, well, I can go here, I can go here, I can
Recruiting.
go there, or production workers or what have you. And the PR value also of, if you're donating at the holidays, or you're engaging with a tech school, or you're doing something for
Community involvement.
manufacturing month, that's all PR. Promote it. And
Yes. I just could talk about this all day, as I know you could. I get so excited because there are so many opportunities that our listeners and manufacturers everywhere could take advantage of. So I think that's what we want to leave you listening with, is stop being the best kept secret.
Right. And if you feel like you want to do it yourself, by all means, do it. And you get a little bit more grace when you're calling from the manufacturer than when you're calling from us as an agency. But again, we have a whole, I got to wave my arms again. We have a whole other, this is hysterical. I would like go on.
It's the way we roll here at this podcast.
Yeah, it's the way
all
we roll.
good.
I got to go tape that light switch in my gym open. So, but, again, tell the world. And, if you want to learn, we have a very deep ebook on PR for manufacturers. It tells you everything we talked about today, plus. And so, feel free to download that. It's all free at our website. And if you have questions, we're here to help.
Absolutely. Well, Rob, thank you so much for being here and spending some time with me and our listeners. I hope that you keep fighting fires, and in real life and for manufacturers.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. And, good luck with everything. Manufacturing Masters, I've been honored to have done videos and support such a great mission to just keep manufacturing growing.
Absolutely. And I just want to say a quick shout out to you listening and or watching this. You have a plethora of things that you can spend your time on. And the fact that you chose to invest a little time in yourself and your business today and spend time with us matters. It means a lot to us. We want to keep earning your attention. So Keep manufacturing, keep doing what you're doing. It's important, and we appreciate you.
And then tell the world your story.
All right, until next time.
Thank
If
you.
you're not already, subscribe to the Manufacturing Masters podcast on Apple Music or Spotify. And for a deeper dive, head on over to manufacturing-masters.com. It's everything they never taught you in school.